While millions of people are casually picking up phone calls, chatting away without a second thought, there's a massive group of people whose heart literally races when their phone rings. And according to neuroscience, your brain might be processing social interaction completely differently. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see everyone who says, "Just call me." Here's the thing nobody talks about. Preferring text over phone calls doesn't make you antisocial. It doesn't mean you're bad at communication. And it definitely doesn't mean something's wrong with you. But there is something fascinating happening in your brain that's completely different from people who love calling. Let's start with the obvious question. Why do so many people prefer calling? Humans are social creatures. For thousands of years, hearing someone's voice meant connection, tone, inflection, laughter. These vocal cues helped us build trust, detect danger, form bonds. And phone calls are basically that ancient mechanism in modern form. When someone hears a voice, their brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same chemical that makes you trust people, feel connected, build relationships. Their brain literally rewards them for verbal conversation. But here's where it gets interesting. People who prefer texting often have what psychologists call higher processing needs. Their brains require more time to formulate responses. They're not slower. They're more thoughtful. They want to communicate with precision. And phone calls don't give them that buffer. There's actual research on this. A 2018 study found that people who prefer text-based communication scored higher in cognitive reflection, meaning they think more carefully before responding. They don't just react, they consider. But wait, it gets even more specific. When you text, you're in complete control. You can read a message, think about it, craft the perfect response, edit it 3 times, then hit send. You have time, space, autonomy. Phone calls? That's improvisation. That's live performance. That's you responding in real time without a safety net. For people with anxiety or overthinking tendencies, this is terrifying. Your brain goes into overdrive trying to predict what they'll say, how you should respond, whether you'll mess it up somehow. Neuroscientists call this processing time anxiety. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and decision-making, needs a buffer. Texting gives you that buffer. Phone calls rip it away. And here's the kicker. Studies using brain imaging show that people with text preference have higher activity in their anterior cingulate cortex during social interactions. That's the part of your brain that monitors conflict and errors. Translation? Your brain is working overtime during conversations, scanning for mistakes. Phone calls make that worse because there's no edit button. Think about that. Your preference for texting might literally be your brain protecting you from cognitive overload. Here's something that sounds harsh, but it's true. Phone calls are demanding. When someone calls you, they're essentially saying, "Stop whatever you're doing right now and give me your full attention." It doesn't matter if you're overwhelmed, exhausted, or in the middle of something. The phone rings, and suddenly you're expected to perform. Texting, on the other hand, is asynchronous. You reply when you're ready, when you have the mental energy, when you're in the right headspace. It respects boundaries in a way phone calls simply don't. Research shows that people who prefer texting score higher in autonomy needs. They value control over their time and attention. They're not being rude. They're protecting their mental resources. And for introverts or highly sensitive people, social interaction requires energy, even with people you love. Phone calls demand that energy immediately, without warning. It's like someone showing up at your door unannounced versus texting to ask if you're free. One feels like an invasion, the other feels considerate. Let's talk about one of the most underrated stressors of phone calls: The awkward silence. You know that moment when the conversation pauses and suddenly you're both just breathing into the phone? Your brain panics. Should I say something? Is this weird? Are they bored? With texting, silence doesn't exist. If the conversation pauses, it just pauses. No pressure, no awkwardness. You can take 5 minutes or 5 days to respond, and it's socially acceptable. Phone calls don't allow for that. Every second of silence feels like an eternity, and if you already struggle with keeping conversations flowing, that pressure is paralyzing. A 2020 study found that people with phone anxiety showed heightened amygdala activation during unexpected pauses in conversation. That's your fear center firing, your brain interpreting silence as social failure. Now, here's where things get really interesting. If you're under 35, you probably grew up texting. It's not just a preference, it's your native language. You learn to express emotion through words, emojis, timing. You developed a whole communication system that doesn't require voice. Older generations grew up with phone calls as default. For them, calling feels personal, intimate, efficient. Texting feels cold. But for younger people, it's the opposite. Texting feels thoughtful because you have time to express yourself clearly. Phone calls feel intrusive because they demand immediate availability. Neither is wrong. They're just different communication styles shaped by different eras. And understanding this prevents so much unnecessary conflict. Here's what I want you to understand. Preferring text over phone calls doesn't make you antisocial, rude, or bad at connection. It makes you self-aware. You know how you communicate best. You know what drains you and what doesn't. And you're choosing a method that allows you to show up as your most thoughtful, authentic self. Some people thrive in spontaneous verbal conversation. Others need processing time. Neither is better or worse. They're just different. Studies actually show that people who prefer texting often have deeper, more meaningful written conversations. They take time to articulate complex emotions. They're not avoiding intimacy. They're pursuing it differently. Here's what researchers found. People who prefer texting score higher in written expression and emotional articulation. They're better at putting feelings into words. They process internally before externalizing. Phone call lovers process externally. They think out loud. They need verbal interaction to clarify their thoughts. Neither strategy is superior. They're just different approaches to the same human need for connection and understanding. So if you're someone who feels genuine anxiety when your phone rings, know this. You're not broken. You're not weird. You're not alone. Your brain just needs processing time. Values thoughtfulness over spontaneity. Protects your energy in a world that constantly demands it. Set boundaries. Let people know you're better over text. Explain it's not personal. It's just how you function best. Because at the end of the day, communication isn't about the method. It's about connection. And if texting allows you to connect more authentically, then that's the right choice for you. So next time someone says, "Just call me," remember, you're not avoiding connection. You're choosing it on your terms. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment and let me know, do you prefer texting or calling? And if you want more content like this, hit subscribe. See you in the next video.